Let us do our service. Start. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, Riyans and Chavi, welcome to the class. I was not present in the previous class, so I became late. So yes, so we'll begin with this chapter 8. I think we have already covered some part. So I'll just summarize everything, what we have done till now, and then we'll discuss further. So chapter 8 is entitled Attaining the Supreme. So how do you attain the Supreme Lord at the time of death? That is the question of Arjuna, right? How can we remember you at death? Your death is the most important examination. The whole life is a preparation and death is the examination. If you can remember Krishna at the time of death, then what will happen? We'll attain to the spiritual nature, the eternal nature, our real home, back to Godhead. So that is Arjuna's question. How can we remember you at death? So then Krishna describes in great detail about the what happens at death and what is the principle. So he said that whatever you remember at the time of death, that is what you attain ultimately. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati sa madbhavam. Madbhavan, you'll attain my nature. Yati nasti atra samsaya. There is no doubt about it. That means if someone at the time of death, he remembers the Supreme Lord, and while remembering the Supreme Lord, he leaves his body, what will happen? He will attain to the spiritual nature, right? He will not have to return back to material nature. There are so many kinds of birth, isn't it? We see a dog is born, we see trees are born, human beings are born, right? That means before the kind of birth one takes also tells the what they remembered in the previous life at the time of death, right? The mentality is carried to the next life. So we see the famous examples of Vrittasura. I told you this story, I think, that how he was a demon apparently, but because he remembered the Supreme Lord at the time of death, while he was being killed by Indra, he went to spiritual world, Vaikuntha. And another example we discussed, okay, of Bharat Maharaj, that how he was, although a great sage, great, saintly king who went to forest to attain the Supreme Lord, somehow or other, by misfortune, he got associated with a deer, and attached to deer, he remembered deer at the time of death. And what happened? He became a deer in the next life. So both example, a demon going back to God and a great saintly person becoming a deer because of remembering deer. And another example is, so therefore Lord Krishna is saying, therefore always remember me even while you are doing your duty. This is possible if we dedicate our mind and intelligence to Lord, right? Dedicating mind means the function of mind is to think, feel, and will. This is the function of mind: thinking, feeling, willing. So think about God, think about the Lord. Feeling, repose your feelings, emotions to the Lord by the process of devotion service. And willing, we want to do something, right? We want to achieve something. So let it be done for the Lord. So thinking, feeling, willing, when we repose these three things to the Lord, then that is dedicating our mind to Lord Krishna. And what is intelligence? Function of intelligence. The function of intelligence is to think logically, right and wrong, to decide to have determination. These are the plan. All these are the abilities of intelligence. We should plan our life in such a way that we can remember God. We should plan our life in such a way that we can remember God. Right. Similarly, we should use our intelligence to understand about God. So this things is dedicating our intelligence to God. And if we do so throughout our life, then Mam Evaisasi Asamse, there's no doubt that we'll attain the spiritual nature of the Supreme Lord, Vaikuntha or Golok Vrindavan, where God lives eternally in spirit, in spiritual position. So that is about how this is a very famous sloka and very useful for all living entities who are working. Right? Tasma sarvesu kalesu. It is not saying that you remember me for some time, always, all time. Mam anusmara, you remember me. And this is also very important. Yuddhacha, you don't stop your duty. You have some duties in this world. You have, as a student, you study. Your parents work. As teachers, we teach. As a doctor, you treat. So there are different duties, but all those duties can be done while remembering the Supreme Lord. And that is the greatest duty that we have. So we see that if one lives a life, whole life remembering and acting for God, then what happens? Even at the time of death, they will have the uh, you know they will have the ability to remember God. Just like we see this famous example of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who was the founder of ISKCON, and he dedicated his whole life for remembering and preaching about the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, the science of God. And even while he was about to die, what he was doing, do you know? What he was doing while he was about to die? He was translating Srimad Bhagavatam. He was teaching, yeah, yes, Bhagavatam, not Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, which also talks about the science of God in more detail. So I'll just show you.
If we engage in devotional service, we get a different nature. And if we engage in the business of sense gratification, we get all different.
And then that karma is tad deho palabdhi hetu.
Yeah. And according to the association of different nature, we get a body. Karanam gunasangasya satasat janmajoni. Therefore, we should always seek good association. Devote association. Then on life will be successful.
Okay. So we see that how these great souls, because they always engage their words in glorifying the Supreme Lord and thinking about Him. So what happens, even at the time of death, they can remember the Supreme Lord and go back to the spiritual world. And another example we learned is that of Ajamila. Ajamila, he was a sinful man. Because of his bad association, we see that how he became a all kind of sinful activities is committed. But because at the time of death, he remembered the name of Narayana, right? Out of fear of Yamdutas, he was saved, right? And he attained the perfection. So that is the power of remembering God, right? Anyhow, somehow or other, if someone remembers God, then he is freed from all sinful activities and sinful reaction, and he becomes purer and purer. So even while we are duting all, executing all our duties, we should have a practice of remembering God every day, right? Abhyas yog yuktena chetasa nanya gamina. Abhyas, that means there is a practice, right? We need to practice every day chanting the names of God, reading about God. So these activities help us develop that practice of remembering God. Chetasa nanigamina. And what is the perfection of that practice? We should come to a stage where we cannot think of anything else about God. Right? Then what will happen? Paramam Purusam Divyam, that supreme transcendental Lord, Yati Parth Anuchintayan. By constant remembrance, we can attain to him. Right? And the example of such remembrance is, can you give some example where you see that some devotee is always remembering God? Right? Like one example is that of Prahlad, right? What is Prahlad doing all the times? He's always chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So he's always remembering God in this way. Similarly, we see in Vrindavan, there are different devotees of Krishna. Like there are devotees like Mother Yasoda and Nand Maharaj who are in parental affection. There are devotees like his cowherd friends like Sridama, Sudama, Madhumangal. They are in relationship of friendship, right? Similarly, there are trees and plants. They are in a neutral relationship with Krishna. And then there are devotees who are in a relationship of love with Krishna, like the gopis. And all of them, we see that they're always remembering Krishna's activities. Even while they're doing all different activities, they're making flower garland, they are sweeping the floor, they are, taking water out of the well, all these things, they're always remembering God, right? So they're the greatest devotees of. So how do we remember Krishna? That is possible by devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, right? So what Lord Krishna says about this, that if someone does Bhakti Yoga, how he is very easily available, right? So we'll read this and see the meaning. So attain me by remembering me, right? You can attain me by remembering. By remembering God, we can attain the Supreme Lord. Ananya chetah satatam yo mam smriti nityasa tasyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasya yogina. Ananya cheta. Ananya means nothing else. Na anya. There is nothing else in the mind. Cheta means in our what you can say, consciousness. So a consciousness in which there is nothing else about God. Satatam, and not for one, one moment or one day, 1 hour. No, satatam, for always. Yo mam smarti nitrita. A person who remembers me like that, right? Always without deviation. For such a person, what is the result? What is the profit? The profit is that tasyaham, for such a person, sulabha. Sulabha means very easily available. Partha addressing Arjuna. Nitya yuktasya yogina, because he is constantly engaged. For such a person, such a yogi, a devotee, I am sulabha. Sulabha means Krishna is easily available, right? So such a person, what he can do, he can ask Krishna, oh Krishna, how you are feeling? Are you feeling good today? Like we see so many devotees of Lord Krishna, they talk with him, right? Like I remember one past time that in South India we went to a temple. What temple was that? Varadaraj temple, I think. So there was one devotee, actually Ramanujacharya. You have heard about Ramanujacharya? How many of you have heard about Ramanujacharya? Yes, no? Anyone has heard of Ramanujacharya? No. Okay. Okay, so no problem. Ramanujacharya is a very great spiritual teacher in Sri Sampradaya, right? Who appeared in South India and near the place of Sri Rangam, very famous temple. Any South Indian you can ask, they know about Sri Rangam and Ramanujacharya. He appeared thousands of years back, and he's the one who spread the, you can say, the teachings of Sri Sampradaya in a very great way throughout the South India. So his guru, one of the gurus, I forgot his name. He was a you can say, coming from a very low caste, but he was a very, um, staunch devotee, or you can say undeviated, unmotivated devotee of Lord. So he would fan the Lord, fanning. Like in summer, we fan. In previous time, they used to fan so that a person does not feel cold, hot. So this devotee, I forgot his name. What was his name, Ansu Prabhu? Do you remember? Yes, Bhagavad Gita is conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Yes.
I don't remember. No.
Okay. Vardraj, he used to fan Vardraj. What is his name? I forgot.
Ise, I think it was
Koshti
Kuresh.
Purna? Kurais? No, not Kurais. Some Purna. Okay. Whatever. So this devotee used to ask Vardraj, Vardraj, are you all right? Are you feeling okay? Is it too hot today? Should I give you something else? And God would talk to him. So such devotees who always engage in, undeviated service to God, for them God becomes easily available, right? So they can get direct instructions from God, right? They can directly, so God may also tell them, oh, I think you should not go this way, you should go that way. Or he may sometimes say, it is not good to eat today, should not eat today, or you should not eat this, you should not talk like this. So God can directly instruct them if someone remembers God without a deviation, and satatam, nityasa, always. Because God says that, oh, such a person has no one except me in his life, right? So for him, he becomes sulabha. This word is very important, sulabha, right? He becomes easily available, right? So how do we practice chanting, thinking of Krishna? There are three ways which one leads to another. Shravanam, we hear about him. Kirtanam, by chanting his name and chanting his activities. And Smaranam, we remember, right? Just like you hear about this message of Bhagavad Gita, then you can remember, right? You can chanting the names of God, or chanting it to others, explaining it to others can also help us understand it better. And third is mainly about the activities of Lord, chanting. And Smaran means then we remember, right, what we heard and what it is, the science. Just like one example we can see, like we heard that Bhumir Aap Analo Vayu Kham Mano Buddhir Evacha Ahankariti Yamme Binna Prakritir Ashtadha. These eight things are material energy of Supreme Lord. What are they? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. So whenever you see, you know, uh, anything, right, which appears to be not connected with God, like you see a skyscraper building, you can easily remember, oh, the source of all these material elements is the Supreme Lord Krishna, right? So in this way you can remember. Similarly, when you see the sun, you can easily remember, oh, Krishna says, Prabha Asmi Sasi Surayo, I am the light of the sun and moon. So that leads to remembering of God, remembrance of God. Similarly, Krishna says, I am the taste of water, Rasoham Apsu Kaunteya. So in this way we can connect. Similarly, in this slokas we are seeing that, if one remembers God, God is very easily available, right? And we can remember him by chanting the holy names of God, right? We can remember all these different stories, right? What are the instruction of Lord Krishna, that we can remember. So you can always remember even while doing your studies that, oh, why I'm doing my studies, right? Let me do it for the Supreme Lord, for his pleasure. So the different instruction of Krishna we can remember, his different activities we can remember, his devotees we can remember, right? And we can engage in his service, we can chant his names. So the process of remembering Krishna is so powerful, that, even if someone remembers Krishna out of any region, right? Even out of contempt, or out of anger, he gets a great result. But we should not remember Krishna out of anger or this thing. We should remember him positively, right? So I'll just give an example. Okay, you were asking this question. Do you have any further doubts? Bhagavad Gita is conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Yes. You have any further doubts about this, or you want to ask anything specific? Okay. So the process of remembering Krishna is so powerful that even if it is done for any region, it gives us a wonderful result. Just like suppose a sugar candy. Sometimes the sugar candy is, made in form of an elephant, right? You have seen, or sugar candy is made in form of, say, a mm, elephant, or different shapes, right? You have seen. So even, you eat the leg of the elephant, or you eat the head of the elephant, it will be only sweet, because it is made of sweet only, everything sweet. Similarly, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, he is all sweet. Whether you eat him any way, whether you remember him any way, the result is ultimately most purifying, right? That is the nature of the Lord. So how, let us see some example. Kamsa and Sisupal. So how Kamsa used to remember, I'll just show you first a sloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, which says that what I'm speaking, it is actually a sloka only. Okay, I'm not getting it right. Oh, okay, so Kamsa we see. Who was Kamsa? Who was Kamsa? Kamsa was maternal uncle of Lord Krishna. And how he used to remember Krishna? Actually, from the day he heard that, the eighth son of Devaki will be your Kala, he will kill you. From that day, he's always fearful, right? And then the eighth son of Devaki, Lord Krishna, is born, and he's nowhere to be found. So he tries so many ways to find him out and kill him, right? And ultimately, Lord Krishna is born and brought up in Vrindavan, and then he comes to Mathura for a match, right? For a match, and then wrestling match. And there is a wrestling match, and he kills the two very big wrestlers. And this whole everything is arranged by Kamsa only. It was a plan to kill Lord Krishna, right? So Lord Krishna, he's just a 10, 11 years old boy, and he kills, very strong wrestlers, you know. So just tender age boys are killing two wrestlers, and then, you know, Kamsa becomes so fearful. He becomes so fearful that, he's seeing everywhere Krishna only. But that remembrance of Krishna is not out of love. That is out of fear, because he's seeing Krishna as death personified, right? So out of fear, he's thinking that, even where there's no Krishna, he's thinking, oh, Krishna is coming that way. Oh, Krishna is coming that way. He's coming to kill me. Like that, he's always fearful, But because he's always remembering Krishna, he also attained the, you can say, not the highest perfection, but he got liberated from material world, right? He went into, he could not get the ultimate perfection of going and entering into the spiritual world, but he got free from the bondage of material life. Similarly, we see another example, Sisupal. Who is Sisupal? Sisupal was actually one of the envious kings who was always envious of Lord Krishna, right? He used to always, blaspheme Lord Krishna and speak so many ill words about him. Just from his, just starting of his birth, he started the first word, words of hatred for Lord Krishna. And throughout, he had got a benediction, from Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna has promised to his mother that, as long as he does not cross 100 words of blaspheming me, I'll not kill him, right? But if he crosses 100 words of blasphemy at one go, then I will kill him. So he was always count that, because he's always envious, he would always, keep on saying so many bad things. Oh, Krishna is, he's a cheater, he is a killer of his own dynasty, he is a cowherd boy, he's a Vaishya. It's like that. He used to tell so many bad things about Lord Krishna, trying to blaspheme him. But he would always count and stop at 99, right? Because he know that if I cross, I'll be killed. But one day, what happened? It was Rajsu Yagya, and Rajsu Yagya means Lord Krishna was to be glorified, and Yudhishthir Maharaj had performed this Rajsu Yagya to glorify and honor Lord Krishna, and he began, blaspheming Lord Krishna, and this time he was so enraged that he didn't keep account, and he kept on glorifying. But you can see one thing. Yeah, I'll complete. So what happened? He crossed 100, and then the Sudarshan Chakra came from Lord Krishna, and it chopped off the head of Sisupal, this demon. And as soon as he was killed, a light came out of the heart of Sisupal, you can see here, and entered into the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, indicating that he has attained the spiritual nature, right? So then Yudhishthir Maharaj, who was sitting just nearby, he became very inquisitive. How is it possible? There are so many great personalities who, for millions of lifetime, they want to achieve Lord Krishna and his spiritual nature, but they're unable to, right? And how is it possible that such a person who is always blaspheming Lord Krishna, he is getting to, attain the spiritual nature? So this question is asked by Yudhishthir Maharaj to Narad Muni, who is also present in the same assembly, right? So he's asking from Narad Muni, how is it possible, right? It is a great wonder for me that, all the devotees, or you can say yogis, they, for so many lifetime, they are always eager to attain the spiritual nature, but they are unable to. And this person who is always blaspheming Lord Krishna, he has attained the spiritual nature. So then Narad Muni explains that, the power of remembering Krishna is so great that even if someone remembers out of fear, out of anger, out of lust, out of envy, out of hatred, out of love, that is the greatest what to speak of, out of love. Anyway, one remembers Krishna, he gets purified and he attains spiritual nature. But does that mean that we should remember Krishna out of hatred and anger and these things? What do you think? What do you think? Hmm? Any thoughts? Okay, so I'll just share you this. Yes, someone can read this. Yes, you can read this one. Rians, you can read.
Okay, sir. The attraction of Kamsa to Krishna in fear and the attraction of Sisupala in envy are not accepted as devotional service. However, because their attitudes are not favorable, devotional service should be executed only in a favorable frame of mind.
Yes, the attraction you can think remembrance. The remembrance of Kamsa to Krishna in fear and the remembrance of Sisupal in envy are not accepted as devotional service. You can understand Bhakti Yoga. That is not accepted as Bhakti Yoga. Why? Because they are not thinking favorably, right? They are thinking unfavorably to Lord Krishna. Bhakti Yoga means when we think of Lord Krishna in a favorable disposition, right? Now, will they attain the same result? The Kamsa, Sisupal, and the devotees who favorably remember Krishna? No. The result is they will not get the same destination. Although all of them will attain the spiritual destination, but not the same destination. One will be lower and another will be higher, the highest. So let us see how. Okay. Okay. Yes. Seventh canto, first chapter, verse 30. 7:130. You can remember. I'll just show you that sloka. 7:130. Yes, this is the sloka I was looking for. Kamadvesad bhaya sneha yatha bhaktesware mana avesya tad agham hitva Bahavastad gatim gata. Many persons have attained liberation simply by thinking of Krishna with great attention and giving up sinful activities. This great attention may be due to lusty desires, inimical feeling, fear, affection, or devotional service. Right? So, how one receives Krishna mercy simply by concentrating one's mind upon Him. So, one may, just like we see, out of uh, Dvesa, who was remembering Krishna out of Dvesha? Sisupal. Who was remembering Krishna out of Bhaya? Kamsa. Who was remembering Krishna out of Sneha? Sneha means affection, like Mother Yasoda, right? Yatha Bhaktesware Mana. Bhaktesware means out of devotional service, like Prahlad. They are remembering Krishna out of devotion. Aveshyatad Agham Hitva. What happens by that? By absorbing the mind in Krishna, all our sins go away. All our sins go away. Bahavastad Gatim Gata, and one gets the spiritual destination. But do they get the same destination? That is the question, right? So the answer is no. What is that? No, let us discuss. There are different levels of, yeah. Yes, please read this one, this part. Chavi can read this one.
Yes, sir. There may be some difficulty understanding.
No, it is not. Okay, yes.
There may be some difficulty in understanding that both the gopis and Kamsa achieved the same goal. So this point should be clearly understood because the attitude of the Kamsa and Shishupal were different from that of the gopis. Although in all the cases the focus is on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all of the devotees are elevated to the spiritual world. There is still a distinction between these two classes of soul. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the absolute truth is one and that he is magnificent as impersonal Brahma, Paramatma,
Personal
Super Soul,
Brahman, Paramatma, Super Soul, and Bhagwan, the Supreme Personality of God.
and Bhagwan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is spiritual distinction. Although Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagwan are the same and one absolute truth, devotees like Kamsa or Shishupal could attain only to the Brahma and influence. They could not
Effulgence.
have effulgence. Sorry, they could not have a realization of Paramatma or Bhagwan. This is the distinction.
Yes. So they are different. Okay, I'll just show you what is this Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan realization. So, okay, I think this is self-explanatory. Yes, Riyans can read this. Yes.
Okay, so an analogy can be given with the sun globe and the sunshine. To remain in the sunshine does not mean one has gone to the sun globe. The temperature of the sun globe is different from the temperature of the sunshine. One who has gone through the sunshine in jet planes or in spaceships has not necessarily gone to the sun globe. Although the sunshine and the sun globe are actually one and the same, still there is a distinction. For one is the energy and one is the energetic source. The absolute truth and his bodily effulgence are in the same way simultaneously one and different. Kamsa and Sisupala attained to the absolute truth, but they were not allowed to enter into the Goloka Vrindavan abode. Impersonalists and the enemies of the Lord are, because of attraction to God, allowed to enter into his kingdom, but they are not allowed to enter into the Vaikunthi planets
Vaikuntha planets.
Vaikunta planets or the Goloka Vrindavan planet of the Supreme Lord. To enter the kingdom and to enter the king's palace are not the same thing.
Yes. So they have entered the kingdom of God, but they are on the outskirts, right? And the devotees who remember the Supreme Lord in affection, they enter to the palace of the Supreme Lord, that is his own home, right? The Golok, Vrindavan, or Vaikuntha planets, right? So this is a distinction. Now we'll just see the map so that you can understand easily what I am speaking about. So what the spiritual world is like and where do these different devotees go. Just see a map about this. Where is that? Just one. Okay. Can you see? Not clearly. Okay. Not a clear image. This is better. The quality is not better. Okay, just 1 minute. I'll just show you from internet. So this is the whole yes, whole of material and spiritual world. Yes. What's this page? I have to see from here only. So you can see here, the lower region you can see, the lower region is the material world, the dark one that you can see, right? This is one universe. I had shown you before also. One universe, there is Mahavishnu who is lying down here and he breathes out different universes, right? And this is the material world in which there is birth, old age, disease, and death. And you can see that the upper part is, first of all, you can see that material world, this dark region, and then you can see this is the spiritual world, and between the two there is light, right? The white region you can see, which is called Brahma Jyoti. That means the effulgence of the Supreme Lord, right? And then you can see the different spiritual planets. First of all, you can see here this one, innumerable number of Vaikuntha planets. And if you go deeper, then there is Golok Vrindavan planet, where the Supreme Lord Krishna resides and he engages in his loving pastime with his devotees. Vrindavan. The replica is present on earth also. Similarly, there are different abodes like Dwarka, Mathura, Saket Dham, Ayodhya, all these different, they're all spiritual planets. And the Golok Vrindavan is the highest spiritual planet, or the greatest of all. And there are innumerable number of Vaikuntha planet. You can see here the different spots here. So this is spiritual world and this is material world. Material world is only a very small portion of the spiritual world. The actual thing is spiritual world. And in a small portion there is a jail, because the material world is a jail. It will not be very big. It is one corner lying down, covered by Mahat Tattva. And what is the separation? The separation is the Brahma Jyoti. So those who are like, like Kamsa and Sisupal, where do they go? They go out of material world, but do they enter into the spiritual planet? No, they just remain in the Brahma Jyoti, right? But those who are devotees, they go out of material world, but they also enter into the spiritual kingdom, and they go to one of the spiritual planets like Golok Vrindavan or Mathura, Ayodhya, or Vaikunthas, like that. So I wish I could show you a more better picture, but somehow at this point, yeah, this picture is also good for a quick understanding. Can you see this picture? Here you can see that this is the Golok Vrindavan, and surrounding it there are innumerable Vaikunthas, right? All of them is bright, and the darker portion that you see in one part is the material world, right? Like that. Okay. So this was about the explanation of material and spiritual worlds and how the devotees, they go to different things. Yes, so we come back to our discussion. So we're remembering, yeah, we're discussing that how remembrance of Krishna is so great that even if done out of fear, out of envy, out of anger, it has a purifying effect. So why not remember Krishna in loving devotion? So now Lord Krishna is going to tell the result, right? Mam upetya punarjanma dukkhalayam asasvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gata. Mam upatya, after attaining me, punarjanma, again taking birth, where? Dukkhalayam asasvatam. This world is compared to Dukkhalaya. And asasvatam means temporary. So this world is full of miseries, and this is, although it is full of miseries, someone may say, oh, okay, sir, all right, even if there are miseries, what can be done? I'll adjust here. No, you cannot adjust, because it is temporary, right? So it is miserable and it is temporary. So if someone gets out of such a world by remembering the Supreme Lord, then what happens? Napnuvanti Mahatmana, they don't have to return back to this temporary and miserable world, but they attain the supreme perfection. Samsiddhim paramam gata, right? So attain me by remembering me, right? And if you don't remember Krishna, then what will be the result? A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. Now someone may ask a question that okay, I'll not go to a spiritual world, but I'll go to heaven. Heaven is also very nice, isn't it? I'll go to other lokas like Brahma Loka, where the life is very, very, very big. We cannot even imagine. The one day of Brahma, thousands of yugas pass, right? 1000 Divya Yuga. That means 1000 into 4 cycles of Satya, Dwapar, Treta, and Kali. That is the duration of one day of Brahma. So I'll go to that loka, Brahma Loka, where the time duration is very high. I can live for a very long time, and there will be no diseases, right? In Brahma Loka, there's no disease, right? It is almost like free from most of the defects of material world. So I can go there. I'll not go to spiritual world. So what Lord Krishna says? A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. That whether you go to Brahma Loka or you go to Bhu Loka, wherever you go in this material world, Punar Avartino Arjuna, you will have to come back. Punar Avartino. That means you will have to reincarnate again and again. Right? Wherever you go into the material world, there is birth, there is death. Right? These two principles are constant. But but he promised that in the previous verse, if one goes to spiritual world, there's no punarjanma, right? Mam upetya punarjanma dukkhalayam asasvatam na apnuvanti. There's no coming back, right? for those Mahatmas. So, because they have attained the Paramam Gata, the supreme destination, the spiritual world. So when we remember the Supreme Lord, what happens? We go back to the spiritual world where there is no coming back, no birth, old age, disease, death again. But on the contrary, if you go to anywhere else, right, if you land anywhere else by remembering anything else, then what happens? There is repeated birth and death, whether it is Brahmaloka or it is Satyaloka or it is Indraloka, heaven, hell, everywhere. So what should be done? Mam upetya tu kaunteya punarjanma vidyate. But if someone comes to me, there's no punarjanma, there's no coming back. Oh, this is what I was planning to show you. It is already here. So we see this is the one universe. Okay, but it is only one universe. In one, there's Mahavishnu. They're all universes. Okay, so this is the structure of one universe, one material universe. Right? You can see here Garbho Dakshai Vishnu lying, and from his neighbor Brahmaji appears. There are 14 lokas, and the different devatas, their planets are there. And this is Lord Brahma sitting on the lotus flower. So, and there are the different layers of the universe. You can see first earth layer, then water layer, air layer, earth, water, fire layer, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego, right? And each covering is 10 times the diameter of previous covering. So this is the covering of Brahmanda, one Brahmanda. And there are like that millions of Brahmandas, not millions, unlimited number of material universes. And the whole of that material universe is covered by Mahat Tattva. And then there is spiritual effulgence, the Brahma Jyoti. And beyond Brahma Jyoti are the spiritual planets, Vaikuntha and Golok Vrindavan. Right? So the Kamsa and Sisupal, those who remember God in envy, what happens? They go to the spiritual effulgence, but they could not enter into the spiritual planets and live with the Supreme Lord. But the devotee directly enter into one of the spiritual planets and live with him eternally. So there is rebirth in all planets of the material universe. That is what the Lord Krishna is saying. But if you come back to me, there's no rebirth when you go to Krishna's abode. That is the meaning of that sloka, right? Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartino arjuna mam upetya tu kaunteya punar janamna vidyate. Right? So the distinction between material world and spiritual world. So if you see Brahmas, now Lord Krishna next give a comparison that how Brahma's one day is so big, right? The sloka which comes also, one child was asking me this question that what is the duration of one day of Brahma? Is there any calculation? So yes, there is a calculation. This is in this chapter only of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9. No, we're doing chapter 8. Sloka maybe 17. Yes, 17. So Lord Krishna first tell that if you come to me, there's no rebirth. Even if you go to the highest planet in material world, Brahma Loka, there is death and birth. Now he's telling the duration of one day of Brahma. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Haryad Brahmano Vido Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vido Jana. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. So you can read this purport maybe later on. 88.17 you can note. It gives a whole calculation that what is the duration of Brahma's one day according to our time here, right? This much big amount. This is duration of Brahma's one day according to earthly calculation, and similarly the night also, right? So it may appear that by this calculation, the life of Brahma seems fantastic and interminable, but from the viewpoint of eternity, it is as brief as a lightning flash. So for Mahavishnu, he sees so many Brahmas are going and coming, right? He breathes, then all the Brahma, universes come out, and when he breathes in, all the universes go into his body. So this is nothing in comparison to eternity. Okay, so we'll discuss more details about this. the next class, that is Brahma's one day, manifest and unmanifest state, the Leela, spiritual world is eternal. Okay. The last part we'll do in the last class. Maybe 3-4 slokas are remaining. So, do you have any questions with regard to what we discussed in today's class? Okay. So, I hope you are chanting every day. Okay. So, we could not chant because we already had no time. We have passed that over the time. So, to conclude what we discussed in today's class about what happens at time of death, and therefore what is our duty, the supremacy of remembering Krishna, and how is it possible to remember Krishna by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Sravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. Sravanam, hearing about God. So that can be done by reading books like Bhagavad Gita, the Krishna book, right? Sravanam, Kirtanam, chanting the names of God, and Smaranam, that will automatically lead to remembering God. And even while we are doing our duties, we should mold our life in such a way that we can remember God. So we can dedicate our activities for the Supreme Lord, right? Just like we are studying, we can do it for in a way that is pleasing to God, right? Or we do different occupations, we can do it in a way that is pleasing to God, right? So that will help us, and we can. Another thing which helps is a good association. If we live in association which is where we get a impetus to remember God, or we hear about God, that is also very favorable. So going to temples and meeting devotees, or about uh, hearing from devotees and different activities of God, that these are all helpful in uh, attaining our goal. Okay, so you are studying every day also. There should be balance between both our activities, material as well as spiritual duties. So, okay, all right. So you can do every day, chanting every day, and reading Bhagavad Gita. Like all the verses that we are doing, you can maybe read, like chapter 8 we are doing now. So it can be read every day, 1 or 2 sloka. So it will give you more better understanding of what you are doing. So